Hey guys, welcome back to another journey into medieval history's forgotten shadows. Tonight, we're exploring something that might make you grateful for modern employment laws, workplace safety regulations, and the basic concept that serving powerful people shouldn't require sacrificing your dignity or sanity. We're diving deep into what it really meant to work under Europe's most creatively depraved royal courts. So before we begin this unsettling journey back to 1205, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You think modern powerful people have scandals? You think today's abuse of authority is shocking? Medieval kings turned entire kingdoms into personal playgrounds, where political power meant access to human beings as entertainment. We're talking about rulers who used diplomatic meetings for purposes that would make contemporary politicians look like choir boys. Monarchs whose idea of statecraft involved activities so twisted that court chroniclers literally destroyed records rather than document what they witnessed. Now close your eyes and imagine yourself on a muddy road in early autumn, 1205. You're a 20-year-old peasant from a tiny farming village, and miraculous news has just changed your life forever. Royal recruiters have selected you for service at King John's court, an opportunity that means steady food, warm shelter, and escape from backbreaking farm labour. Your family is celebrating because royal service represents incredible social advancement for someone born into dirt poverty. What none of you know is that King John of England has developed rather unconventional approaches to running his kingdom, approaches that would make modern dictators seem restrained by comparison. Your 3-day journey to court travels through landscapes that grow progressively stranger as you approach the royal seat. The other recruits in your group, 6 young people from scattered villages, chatter excitedly about their bright futures. But the royal guards escorting your party grow increasingly silent as familiar territory falls behind. When eager recruits ask questions about court life, about what duties await them, the soldiers exchange glances that make optimism feel suddenly foolish. Patience, they mutter. Everything becomes clear soon enough. That's hardly reassuring coming from men whose job involves protecting the crown's interests. The castle emerges from evening mist, like something designed by architects with serious psychological problems. Massive stone walls rise impossibly high, punctuated by towers that seem to watch your approach with malevolent attention. Torchlight flickers along battlements where guards pace in patterns that suggest paranoia rather than routine security. Sounds drift from within, laughter that carries undertones of hysteria, music that seems deliberately discordant, and something else that makes your skin crawl, despite being impossible to identify. Your fellow recruits finally fall silent as the gates creak open to admit your group. The first assault on your senses comes immediately upon entering the courtyard. The smell hits you like a physical blow, not just typical medieval odours of unwashed bodies and animal waste, but something underneath that's sweet, cloying and vaguely nauseating. It reminds you of flowers left too long in water or fruit beginning to rot, though you suspect the actual source is something you'd rather not contemplate. Carved stone decorations throughout the entryway depict scenes that would make monastery artists faint. Classical mythology rendered with interpretations that emphasize aspects usually left to imagination. The artwork maintains plausible deniability, nothing explicitly inappropriate, but everything designed to plant specific ideas in viewers' minds. Ideas that no normal royal residents would want visitors entertaining. A gaunt servant appears to greet your group. He introduces himself as Thomas, head of domestic staff, and his welcoming speech consists entirely of restrictions that sound more like survival instructions than orientation guidelines. Maintain downcast eyes when nobles pass. Execute orders without questions or hesitation. Avoid the east wing entirely after sunset hours. Never enter rooms marked with purple ribbons. Don't volunteer for assignments described as special service. And regardless of what sounds you hear during night hours, pretend complete deafness. One recruit asks why such elaborate precautions are necessary for simple domestic work. Thomas's face drains of colour, and he stammers something about maintaining appropriate court protocols before hurrying everyone towards sleeping quarters. The servant dormitories occupy the castle's lower levels, underground chambers with stone walls that weep moisture despite burning braziers. Your sleeping arrangement consists of a straw mattress, wool blanket, and wooden chest for personal belongings. Decent accommodations compared to village standards, though the unusually thick walls and high-placed windows create an atmosphere more prison than residence. Deep scratches mar the wooden walls beside your assigned bed. Gouges that look like they were made by human fingernails dragged repeatedly across the surface. When you question the servant sharing the adjacent space, he glances toward the corridor entrance and whispers urgently about covering such marks with blankets and never mentioning their existence to anyone. Your first meal in the Great Hall provides education in court hierarchy that no village gossip could have prepared you for. Regular servants eat quickly while stealing furtive glances at the high table where King John holds court. But this isn't ordinary royal dining. There's something theatrical about the evening meal, something performed rather than simply experienced. King John himself appears as a florid, heavy-set man whose booming laughter punctuates conversations at inappropriate moments. His jokes contain double meanings that make courtiers shift uncomfortably while forcing smiles. His hands wander constantly, adjusting clothing, touching shoulders, lingering on servants bringing wine. Normal royal familiarity, perhaps, except for how people flinch even while pretending to enjoy such attention. Royal guests scattered throughout the hall include nobles who should theoretically be enemies of the crown, all sitting together in whispered conversations punctuated by nervous laughter. Some appear to be negotiating, passing small objects across tables, but you can't determine what business requires such secrecy during public feasting. Then there are the servants who aren't serving. Beautiful young people dressed in silk rather than rough wool, moving through the hall like living decorations rather than working staff. They carry no food, clear no tables, light no candles. They simply exist as human ornaments available for mysterious purposes that become apparent when you notice certain nobles bidding for their company, like merchants competing for exotic spices. Hospitality arrangements, Thomas explains when you ask about this human auction system. Distinguished guests expect accommodations beyond simple food and lodging. His Majesty prides himself on providing comprehensive entertainment options for visiting diplomats. Comprehensive entertainment options. An interesting euphemism for what appears to be human trafficking operating openly in the royal dining hall. Work assignments begin the following morning with seemingly standard domestic duties: cleaning chambers, carrying messages, assisting meal preparations, maintaining daily castle operations. Normal tasks that any competent peasant could handle with proper training and attention to detail. Relief floods through you that royal service apparently involves familiar work, despite the previous evening's troubling observations, but comfort evaporates quickly when you're assigned cleaning duties in the East Wing, the area Thomas specifically warned against visiting after dark. During daylight hours, these corridors seem identical to other castle sections, stone passages lined with wooden doors leading to private quarters and meeting rooms. The only unusual features are how thick and heavy the doors appear, and how many sport multiple locks that seem excessive for simple privacy. Your cleaning responsibilities include collecting linens for washing, emptying chamber pots and replacing candles burned down overnight. Standard work that becomes decidedly non-standard when you realise many beds show evidence of multiple occupants. Some rooms contain furniture designed for purposes you can't identify, and chamber pots often contain substances suggesting activities you're desperately trying not to contemplate. Sounds echo through corridors even during daytime. Urgent whispers from behind locked doors, occasional cries that could indicate pain or something else entirely, rhythmic noises that make you hurry past certain chambers without completing assigned tasks. When you report incomplete work, the senior servant simply marks those rooms as temporarily unavailable and reminds you about the vital importance of not asking questions. Your first week establishes a routine that would feel almost normal except for the constant undertone that something terrible is happening just beyond your awareness. Regular duties intermingle with bizarre assignments that make no logical sense, delivering unmarked packages to specific rooms at predetermined times, escorting visitors through corridors that seem to lead nowhere, standing guard outside doors while being explicitly instructed to ignore whatever happens inside. Diplomatic responsibilities is how such assignments are invariably described, though they bear no resemblance to any diplomacy you could imagine. The breaking point arrives during your second week, when you're assigned to help prepare for a special reception honouring visiting French nobles. Preparations involve rearranging great hall furniture, hanging tapestries that make the usual decorations look conservative, and setting up what appear to be performance areas, exhibition spaces. You struggle to categorize arrangements that combine features of theatre, banquet hall, and something uncomfortably reminiscent of livestock auction facilities. Additional servants appear specifically for this reception. Young people from villages throughout the county, selected according to criteria emphasizing appearance over work experience. They're dressed in fine silks and given special briefings about their duties that regular staff aren't permitted to attend. After these mysterious briefings, they look confused and frightened, like people who've been told something they didn't want to hear but aren't allowed to refuse. The reception itself begins with standard diplomatic formalities, introductions, political presentations, the usual pageantry accompanying noble visitors. King John delivers a speech about maintaining strong French alliances, about cultural exchange benefiting both kingdoms, about traditions that strengthen political bonds through shared experiences. Shared experiences. You're beginning to suspect this phrase means something very different in court contexts than it would in normal diplomatic settings. As evening progresses, formal reception gradually transforms into something else entirely. Political discussions become more intimate, with nobles pairing off for conversations that seem to involve negotiating things more personal than trade agreements or military alliances. Entertainment shifts from standard court musicians to performances that make you profoundly uncomfortable, though you can't articulate why watching acrobats and dancers should feel so wrong. Then you notice the gradual disappearance of both visiting nobles and those specially selected servants. Not obviously, not all at once, but a steady migration toward the east wing that leaves the great hall feeling strangely empty despite continued music and dining. Remaining courtiers act as if nothing unusual is happening, maintaining conversations and continuing to feast as if half their companions hadn't quietly vanished. Traditional diplomatic entertainment, Thomas explains when you ask about missing guests. Certain negotiations require privacy inappropriate for general court attendance, perfectly normal for important political discussions. Traditional diplomatic entertainment conducted in the same East Wing where you've heard those disturbing sounds during cleaning duties. Perfectly normal negotiations requiring the kind of privacy provided by multiple locks and soundproof chambers. your understanding of what's actually happening develops gradually through accumulation of horrifying details that eventually form a picture so terrible your mind initially refuses to accept it. Servants returning from special duties, looking hollow-eyed and traumatized. Visiting nobles departing court with satisfaction that seems to exceed successful political negotiation. Mysterious payments changing hands in ways that resemble purchasing decisions rather than diplomatic gift exchange. Slowly, terrifyingly, you begin to comprehend that this royal court isn't merely politically corrupt, it's operating as something that would be completely illegal and morally unconscionable in any civilized society. King John isn't just a poor ruler making bad political decisions. He's transformed his entire kingdom into a personal entertainment venue where political power facilitates activities that no normal person would participate in voluntarily. You consider reporting your observations, but to whom? The king represents ultimate authority, and everyone in power positions appears to be either participating in or profiting from these arrangements. Church officials visiting court seem carefully selected for their willingness to overlook behaviour that should violate every principle of Christian morality. Neighbouring lords who should be horrified by such activities are instead eager participants negotiating for access like merchants bidding on valuable commodities. Your first attempt to leave meets polite but firm resistance. Your contract requires a full year of service, you're informed, and early departure would constitute desertion with serious legal consequences. Besides, you've been entrusted with sensitive diplomatic information, making your continued presence a matter of royal security. Surely you understand the importance of maintaining confidentiality about internal court operations. You understand perfectly. You've witnessed too much to be allowed free departure, and you've learned too many uncomfortable truths about royal diplomacy to be trusted with life outside castle walls. You're no longer a servant. You're a prisoner whose silence has been purchased through imprisonment disguised as prestigious employment. But recognizing the truth also begins your education in court survival. If you can't leave, you'll need to learn navigation through this nightmare without becoming another hollow-eyed victim of traditional diplomatic entertainment. You'll need to discover which assignments can be safely accepted and which lead to experiences that break people. You'll need to identify potential allies among staff while avoiding courtiers whose interest in your services extends beyond normal work requirements. Most importantly, you'll need to start planning escape that accounts for the reality that King John's court isn't just politically dangerous. It's a carefully organised system designed to trap anyone learning its secrets while providing ongoing access to individuals who can't resist or complain about their treatment. Your real education in medieval royal service is just beginning. Tomorrow brings new assignments, new horrors, and new understanding of exactly how creative human beings can become when unlimited power meets complete absence of moral restraint. Welcome to life under one of Europe's most innovative rulers. Chapter 2 will reveal how King John's system connects to similar operations throughout medieval Europe, how international networks coordinate activities between royal courts, and why surviving this nightmare requires skills no normal person should ever need to develop. Your third week at court begins with a promotion that feels more like a death sentence. Thomas approaches you during morning meal preparation with news that should be exciting. You've been selected for advanced diplomatic service, a position that typically takes months to earn. The selection comes with better quarters, finer clothing, and access to areas of the castle previously forbidden to junior staff. "Congratulations," Thomas says, though his expression suggests he's announcing a terminal illness rather than career advancement. "Master Benedict wants to see you immediately in the diplomatic quarters." Master Benedict. You've heard whispers about him. King John's chief diplomatic coordinator, the man responsible for managing international relationships and organizing those special receptions that make regular servants disappear for days. Meeting him represents either incredible opportunity or catastrophic misfortune, and judging by Thomas's face, he's betting on catastrophe. The diplomatic quarters occupy the castle's third level, accessible only through a spiral staircase guarded by 2 soldiers who examine your authorization papers with suspicious intensity before allowing passage. These chambers differ dramatically from the servant areas below. Polished stone floors covered with imported carpets, walls lined with tapestries depicting scenes from across Europe, furniture crafted from woods that probably cost more than your village's entire annual harvest. Master Benedict receives you in a chamber that serves as both office and museum of international relations. Maps of Europe cover every wall, marked with coloured pins and connected by strings that suggest complex networks spanning multiple kingdoms. Shelves display gifts from foreign courts, ornate goblets, jewelled daggers, silk scarves, and other objects that look valuable enough to purchase entire estates. Benedict himself appears as a thin, elegant man whose age is impossible to determine. His clothing suggests wealth and sophistication, but his eyes hold knowledge that makes you instinctively want to step backward. When he speaks, his voice carries authority that makes kings seem like children playing dress-up. "Welcome to real diplomatic service," he begins, gesturing toward a chair that costs more than your family's annual income. "Your performance during preliminary duties has been satisfactory. Now we'll discover whether you possess capabilities necessary for advanced international cooperation." International cooperation. Another euphemism to add to your growing collection of phrases that means something entirely different in court contexts than they would in normal human conversation. Benedict's orientation to diplomatic service begins with history lessons that no monastery school would ever teach. He explains how King John inherited not just political power, but sophisticated systems for managing international relationships through methods that transcend traditional diplomacy. Methods developed over generations of English royalty, who discovered that political alliances could be strengthened through activities that create bonds impossible to dissolve through conventional means. Standard diplomatic agreements rely on mutual benefit and shared interests, Benedict explains while pointing to various map locations. Such arrangements remain vulnerable to changing political circumstances and shifting loyalties, but relationships built through more intimate cooperation create lasting connections that survive political upheavals and military conflicts. Intimate cooperation. You're beginning to understand that every diplomatic term used at court has been carefully selected to disguise activities that would sound horrifying if described directly. Your education continues with detailed explanations of how John's system operates on practical levels. The castle doesn't just house political discussions and formal negotiations. It functions as a sophisticated coordination centre, managing relationships with royal courts throughout Europe. The special receptions you witnessed aren't isolated events, but part of systematic programs that maintain ongoing communication and cooperation between kingdoms that should theoretically be enemies. Benedict shows you correspondence files that would revolutionize your understanding of medieval politics if such information ever became public knowledge. Letters from French nobles describing their satisfaction with English hospitality arrangements. Requests from German princes for access to specific types of entertainment during upcoming diplomatic missions. Detailed schedules coordinating visits between multiple royal courts to ensure optimal resource allocation and guest satisfaction. Effective diplomacy requires understanding what each participant truly desires, Benedict continues, opening a ledger that catalogues visiting nobles according to their documented preferences and previous satisfaction ratings. Traditional negotiations focus on territory, trade agreements, and military alliances, but successful relationships address more fundamental human motivations that transcend political considerations. The ledger contains information that would make contemporary intelligence agencies envious. Detailed profiles of European nobility documenting their private interests, personal vulnerabilities, and preferred entertainment arrangements. Each entry includes recommendations for hospitality approaches, most likely to create lasting diplomatic bonds and ensure continued cooperation with English political objectives. Your role in this system, Benedict explains, will involve direct participation in diplomatic entertainment coordination, not just observing or cleaning up afterward, but actively facilitating the specialized services that distinguish English hospitality from standard royal court experiences. The position requires discretion, adaptability, and willingness to prioritize diplomatic success over personal comfort or conventional moral considerations. Modern diplomatic service demands flexibility, Benedict says, while reviewing your assignment documents. Traditional servants focus on maintaining physical comfort, providing food, lodging, and basic amenities. Advanced diplomatic personnel ensure comprehensive satisfaction that addresses every aspect of guest experience, regardless of how unusual such requirements might seem. Comprehensive satisfaction, another creative euphemism for activities that apparently require abandoning every principle of human decency you've ever learned. Your first advanced assignment involves assisting with preparations for a visit from French diplomatic representatives led by a noble named Philippe, who has developed a reputation for particularly creative approaches to international negotiation. The preparations differ dramatically from standard diplomatic receptions. Instead of focusing on formal meeting spaces and ceremonial dining arrangements, the work emphasizes private chamber modifications and specialized equipment procurement. The chamber modifications include installing furniture designed for purposes that no normal diplomatic meeting would require, beds equipped with restraining mechanisms, chairs positioned at angles that serve no apparent functional purpose, lighting arrangements that create dramatic shadows while illuminating specific areas with unusual intensity. When you ask about the purpose of such modifications, Benedict explains that French diplomatic traditions include ceremonial elements that require specialized accommodation. Different kingdoms maintain unique cultural practices, he says, while supervising furniture placement. Effective diplomacy requires respecting such traditions even when they differ significantly from English customs. Philippe's delegation expects accommodation that demonstrates our understanding of French diplomatic preferences and our commitment to providing authentic cultural experiences. Authentic cultural experiences. You're rapidly losing count of euphemisms that disguise activities you're trying very hard not to think about too specifically. Equipment procurement involves acquiring items that definitely aren't used in normal diplomatic contexts. Ropes and chains crafted from the finest materials available. Instruments that look like they belong in torture chambers rather than diplomatic meeting rooms. Substances stored in unmarked containers that produce unusual odors when opened. The procurement list reads like inventory for activities that would violate every law of civilized society. When Philippe's delegation arrives, their initial behavior seems consistent with standard diplomatic protocol: formal greetings, gift exchanges, preliminary discussions about trade agreements and territorial boundaries. Normal political business conducted by well-dressed nobles who appear completely respectable despite the elaborate preparations made for their accommodation. But as evening approaches, the formal diplomacy gradually transforms into something else entirely. The discussions become more personal, with participants sharing information about private interests and individual preferences that go far beyond political considerations. The gift exchanges shift from ceremonial presentations to negotiations that resemble commercial transactions involving human resources rather than material goods. Your direct involvement begins when Benedict assigns you to escort selected individuals to private chambers prepared according to their documented preferences. The escort duties require maintaining professional demeanor while facilitating activities that would make normal people report crimes to authorities. Activities that apparently represent standard diplomatic procedure in this specialized international community. The individuals being escorted include both visiting French nobles and those specially selected servants you remember from your first week. But now, you understand that their selection wasn't random. They've been specifically chosen and prepared for roles in diplomatic entertainment that goes far beyond providing standard hospitality services. Their preparation included training that you're only beginning to comprehend the scope of. Philippe himself proves to be a sophisticated man whose political discussions demonstrate genuine intelligence and diplomatic skill. His approach to international relations combines traditional statecraft with methods that would revolutionize European politics if they became widely adopted, methods that create personal bonds between political leaders through shared experiences that transcend conventional diplomatic arrangements. English hospitality has earned legendary reputation throughout Europe, Philippe explains during a private conversation that Benedict insists you attend for educational purposes. King John's approach to international cooperation provides models that other kingdoms attempt to replicate without understanding the systematic organization required for authentic success. Systematic organization. You're beginning to realize that what appears to be individual royal depravity actually represents sophisticated international networks operating according to established protocols and professional standards. Your education in systematic organization continues through exposure to communication networks that coordinate activities between multiple royal courts across Europe. The coordination involves regular correspondence, resource sharing, and personnel exchanges that maintain ongoing cooperation between kingdoms that publicly maintain hostile relationships for political purposes. Benedict shows you letters from courts throughout Europe describing successful implementation of English diplomatic methods, requests for technical assistance in establishing similar systems, invitations to participate in international conferences where diplomatic innovations are shared and refined through collaborative development. Evidence that King John's approach represents just one component of continent-wide networks that operate according to shared principles and common objectives. Diplomatic innovation requires international cooperation, Benedict explains while reviewing correspondence from German and Italian courts. Individual kingdoms lack resources necessary for comprehensive system development, but coordinated efforts enable achievement of diplomatic objectives that exceed anything possible through traditional methods. The correspondence reveals systematic cooperation between courts that theoretically should be enemies, but maintain secret alliances through participation in activities that create unbreakable bonds between political leaders. The activities serve dual purposes, providing entertainment that satisfies participants while creating leverage that ensures continued cooperation regardless of changing political circumstances. Your role in these international networks, Benedict explains, will eventually extend beyond local English operations to include travel assignments coordinating activities between different courts. Advanced diplomatic personnel rotate between kingdoms, sharing expertise and maintaining consistency in service standards that ensure participant satisfaction regardless of location. International experience provides career advancement opportunities unavailable through traditional diplomatic service, Benedict says while reviewing your performance evaluations from preliminary assignments. Personnel who demonstrate capability in multicultural environments earn access to specialized positions that influence European political development at the highest levels. But international assignment opportunities come with increased security requirements that make departure from diplomatic service virtually impossible. Personnel with knowledge of network operations represent security risks that require careful management through incentives that ensure continued loyalty and comprehensive surveillance that prevents unauthorized disclosure of operational details. Your growing understanding of network scope makes escape seem increasingly impossible. You're not just trapped in one castle serving one deviant king. You've become part of international systems that operate throughout Europe with sophisticated security measures and comprehensive personnel management. Escape would require evading not just English surveillance, but coordinated networks that span multiple kingdoms and include participants at every level of European society. But your education also reveals potential vulnerabilities in systems that rely on human participants who might eventually develop moral objections to continued participation. Networks that depend on secrecy become vulnerable when participants decide that exposure serves their interests better than continued cooperation. International coordination creates communication systems that could be exploited by individuals with access to operational details and motivation to destroy rather than maintain existing arrangements. Your assignment to international liaison duties marks the beginning of education in European diplomatic networks that exceed anything you could have imagined when you first arrived at King John's court just 3 weeks ago. Networks that combine political power with systematic human exploitation through methods that would horrify civilized society if their scope and sophistication became public knowledge. But your liaison position also provides access to information about network operations throughout Europe, including details about personnel management, security procedures, and coordination methods that might eventually be used to expose and destroy systems that represent the worst aspects of human nature combined with unlimited political power. The true scope of international networks that connect King John's operations with similar systems throughout medieval Europe awaits your discovery. You'll learn about the coordination methods that maintain cooperation between hostile kingdoms, the personnel management techniques that ensure participant loyalty, and the security measures that protect network operations from exposure and destruction. You'll also discover your own role in networks that extend far beyond English borders and begin planning resistance that might eventually expose and destroy systems that represent systematic exploitation disguised as diplomatic innovation. The success of Philippa's diplomatic visit marks your transition from local castle operations to international network coordination. Benedict summons you to his chambers 3 days after the French delegation's departure, and his expression carries satisfaction that makes your stomach twist with apprehension. Successful diplomatic entertainment, you're beginning to understand, creates opportunities for advancement that no normal person would want. Philippe has requested your specific assignment to upcoming cultural exchange programs, Benedict announces while reviewing correspondence that arrived with the morning courier. Your performance during French delegation accommodation has earned recognition at the highest levels of international diplomatic coordination. Recognition at the highest levels. That should sound like career achievement, but given what you now know about diplomatic coordination, it feels more like a death sentence delivered with bureaucratic politeness. The cultural exchange programs, Benedict explains, represent the crown jewel of international diplomatic innovation. Unlike isolated court visits that provide temporary entertainment for individual delegations, exchange programs establish ongoing relationships between kingdoms through systematic personnel rotation and resource sharing that maintains continuous cooperation regardless of political circumstances. Traditional diplomacy depends on temporary agreements that expire when circumstances change, Benedict says while spreading maps across his desk that show communication routes connecting courts throughout Europe. Cultural exchange creates permanent bonds through shared experiences that transcend political considerations and ensure lasting cooperation even during periods of apparent hostility. The maps reveal network complexity that exceeds anything you've previously imagined. Communication routes connect not just major royal courts, but smaller noble residences, monastery complexes, and merchant centres that serve as coordination points for activities spanning the entire continent. Red lines indicate established exchange routes, blue marks show communication centres, and black symbols identify what the legend diplomatically refers to as specialised service locations. Your assignment to international coordination begins with travel to France for direct consultation with Charles VI's court regarding expansion of exchange programs to include participants from additional kingdoms. The consultation involves personal meetings with French diplomatic personnel who have developed innovations that complement English methods while maintaining cultural authenticity that ensures participant satisfaction. Charles VI has earned particular reputation for creative approaches to international entertainment, Benedict explains while reviewing your travel authorization documents. His court has pioneered techniques that maximize participant enjoyment while minimizing operational costs and security risks. His methods have influenced diplomatic entertainment development throughout Europe. The journey to France requires traveling with a diplomatic courier team that manages communication between English and French coordination centres. The couriers appear as normal merchants, whose cargo includes typical trade goods, wool, silver, and manufactured items that provide legitimate cover for their actual purpose of maintaining secure communication networks between courts involved in cultural exchange programs, but hidden within standard trade cargo are specialized packages containing items that no normal merchant would transport, documentation describing participant preferences and performance evaluations, training materials for personnel development programs, equipment designed for activities that require specialized accommodation arrangements. The courier team treats such materials with security measures typically reserved for military intelligence or royal treasury transport. Your escort explains that courier operations represent essential infrastructure for international network coordination. Without secure communication, courts cannot coordinate schedules, share resources, or maintain quality standards that ensure participant satisfaction across cultural differences and geographic distances. The communication networks have evolved into sophisticated systems that rival anything available to conventional diplomatic or military operations. Effective international cooperation requires information management that exceeds traditional diplomatic capabilities, your escort explains while reviewing route security protocols. Our networks maintain communication standards that enable real-time coordination between operations separated by hundreds of miles and multiple political jurisdictions. The French court at Saint-Denis operates from a converted monastery complex that provides ideal accommodation for cultural exchange activities while maintaining religious cover that deflects unwanted attention from conventional authorities. The conversion involved extensive modifications that transform religious spaces into facilities specifically designed for international diplomatic entertainment, while preserving architectural features that maintain legitimate historical appearance. Charles VI receives you in chambers that demonstrate the sophisticated integration of religious symbolism with entertainment functionality. Stained glass windows depict traditional religious scenes enhanced with subtle modifications that suggest alternative interpretations of sacred imagery. Religious artifacts have been adapted for secular purposes that maintain ceremonial significance while serving practical functions in diplomatic entertainment arrangements. The king himself appears as a man whose reputation for madness conceals intelligence that has revolutionized international diplomatic cooperation. His apparent delusions about being made of glass serve as perfect cover for methods that require careful handling and specialized accommodation. Visitors who expect to encounter a madman instead discover sophisticated operational leadership that coordinates activities throughout European networks. English diplomatic innovations have provided inspiration for improvements that benefit all network participants, Charles explains, while reviewing operational summaries that document exchange program success throughout the previous year. Our collaboration demonstrates how cultural differences can enhance rather than complicate international cooperation when properly coordinated through systematic program development. The operational summaries reveal network scope that encompasses courts throughout Europe, each contributing specialized capabilities that create comprehensive entertainment options unavailable through individual kingdom operations. English courts provide organizational expertise and personnel training. French operations contribute cultural refinement and artistic innovation. German kingdoms offer equipment, manufacturing, and security coordination. Italian city-states provide communication networks and financial management. Your education in network operations includes tours of facilities that demonstrate French innovations in cultural exchange accommodation, purpose-built chambers designed according to specifications that balance participant comfort with operational efficiency. Training centres where personnel develop specialised skills through programs that combine traditional education with practical experience. Communication hubs where coordination personnel manage schedules and resource allocation for operations spanning multiple kingdoms simultaneously. The French training programs reveal systematic approach to personnel development that exceeds anything available through conventional education. Participants learn language skills that enable effective communication across cultural boundaries. Cultural sensitivity training that helps personnel adapt their services to accommodate diverse participant preferences. Technical skills development that ensures competency in specialized equipment operation and facility maintenance. Professional development represents essential investment in network success, explains the French training coordinator, while reviewing curriculum materials that address every aspect of international cultural exchange operations. Personnel who lack comprehensive education cannot provide service standards that meet participant expectations or maintain operational security that protects network activities from external interference. But the training programs also reveal systematic conditioning that eliminates participants' ability to resist network demands or escape from ongoing service obligations. The conditioning combines psychological manipulation with practical constraints that ensure continued cooperation, regardless of personal preferences or moral objections that might develop during service. Your assignment to direct coordination activities provides access to communication centers where international operations are managed through networks that maintain real-time contact between courts throughout Europe. The communication systems utilize a combination of traditional courier services, coded correspondence, and innovative signal networks that enable rapid coordination of complex operations involving multiple kingdoms simultaneously. The coordination centers operate according to schedules that manage cultural exchange activities involving hundreds of participants rotating between dozens of locations, according to carefully planned programs that maximize resource utilization while maintaining quality standards that ensure participant satisfaction. The scheduling complexity requires mathematical precision that rivals military campaign planning or commercial trade coordination. International program management demands administrative capabilities that exceed traditional diplomatic skills, explains the coordination supervisor, while reviewing scheduling matrices that allocate personnel and resources according to demand patterns that fluctuate seasonally and respond to political developments throughout Europe. Our success depends on maintaining operational efficiency that provides consistent service regardless of external circumstances. Your direct participation in coordination activities includes managing communication with courts throughout Europe regarding personnel requests, resource allocation, and schedule modifications that accommodate changing requirements and unexpected opportunities. The communication volume exceeds anything you could have imagined. Dozens of messages daily requiring immediate response and careful documentation for future reference. The personnel requests reveal systematic evaluation processes that assess individuals according to criteria that balance participant satisfaction with operational security requirements. Each request includes detailed specifications regarding appearance, skills, cultural background, and psychological characteristics that influence assignment decisions and training program development. Your growing expertise in international coordination earns assignment to specialized programs that manage exchange activities involving the most demanding participants and complex operational requirements. These programs require coordination between multiple courts simultaneously, while maintaining security measures that prevent unauthorized disclosure of network activities to conventional authorities. The specialized programs include seasonal festivals that coordinate activities between kingdoms that normally maintain hostile relationships for political purposes. The festivals provide opportunities for international cooperation that transcends conventional diplomatic limitations, while creating entertainment experiences that exceed anything available through individual court operations. Festival coordination represents the ultimate expression of international network capabilities, explains the festival planning coordinator, while reviewing logistical requirements that involve coordinating travel, accommodation, and entertainment for participants from throughout Europe. Success requires collaboration between kingdoms that maintain public hostility while privately cooperating through shared commitment to cultural exchange excellence. But festival coordination also reveals network vulnerabilities that might be exploited by individuals with comprehensive knowledge of operational procedures and access to coordination systems. The festivals require unprecedented cooperation between normally hostile kingdoms, creating communication needs that might be intercepted by external authorities or exploited by network participants seeking to expose operations to public scrutiny. Your participation in festival planning provides education in network scope that encompasses virtually every major political centre throughout medieval Europe. The coordination involves managing relationships between courts that maintain public hostility, while privately collaborating through shared participation in activities that create unbreakable bonds between political leaders, regardless of conventional diplomatic relationships. The festival programs demonstrate how cultural exchange networks have evolved beyond entertainment to become essential infrastructure for European political stability. The networks provide alternative diplomatic channels that operate independently of conventional political relationships, while creating personal bonds between leaders that influence military decisions and economic policy development throughout the continent. Your assignment to advanced coordination responsibilities includes managing communication between network operations and conventional diplomatic activities to ensure that cultural exchange programs support rather than complicate traditional political relationships. The coordination requires sophisticated understanding of both network operations and conventional diplomacy that enables effective integration of alternative and traditional diplomatic methods. But the integration responsibilities also reveal systematic deception that disguises network operations as legitimate diplomatic activities, while maintaining operational security that prevents exposure of activities that would violate every principle of conventional morality and international law. The deception requires comprehensive coordination between network participants and conventional authorities that creates vulnerability to exposure through investigation or betrayal. Your growing understanding of network scope and operational methods provides knowledge that could potentially be used to expose and destroy systems that represent systematic exploitation disguised as cultural innovation. But your knowledge also makes you an essential network asset whose continued cooperation ensures operational security, while your potential betrayal represents existential threat to operations throughout Europe. The coordination responsibilities demonstrate how individual moral objections become irrelevant when network operations achieve institutional scale that encompasses multiple kingdoms and hundreds of participants. Resistance requires coordinated action that overcomes operational security measures and systematic conditioning that eliminates individual capacity for effective opposition. Your education in international network operations reveals systematic organization that exceeds anything possible through individual kingdom efforts, while creating vulnerabilities that might be exploited through comprehensive understanding of coordination methods and communication systems. The networks represent both unprecedented achievement in international cooperation and systematic exploitation that violates every principle of human dignity and conventional morality. Soon you'll discover how network operations expand beyond European kingdoms to include specialized facilities and personnel training programs that industrialize cultural exchange through technological innovation and systematic efficiency improvements. You'll learn about revolutionary contributions to network development and the specialized roles that advanced personnel play in maintaining operational effectiveness across cultural and geographic boundaries. You'll also uncover the resistance networks that operate within cultural exchange systems and the potential for coordinated action that might eventually expose and destroy operations that represent the worst combination of human creativity and unlimited political power. Your expertise in international coordination earns assignment to the most advanced operation in the European network, Peter the Cruel's revolutionary facilities in Castile, where Spanish innovation has transformed cultural exchange from artisanal craft into industrial enterprise. The assignment comes 6 months after your initial festival coordination success, when network leadership recognizes your potential for managing complex operations that require both administrative skill and psychological resilience. Peter's court has achieved breakthroughs that will revolutionize network operations throughout Europe, Benedict explains while preparing your transfer documents to Spain. His innovations address efficiency limitations and quality control challenges that have restricted expansion of cultural exchange programs. Your experience with international coordination makes you ideal for advanced training in industrial-scale operations. Industrial-scale operations. The phrase suggests systematic organization that exceeds anything you've previously encountered. which is terrifying considering what you already know about network sophistication and scope. The journey to Castile requires travelling through territories controlled by multiple kingdoms, using diplomatic credentials that provide safe passage while concealing the actual purpose of your mission. Your escort includes technical specialists whose expertise encompasses engineering, chemistry, and manufacturing processes that have been adapted for cultural exchange applications, requiring precision and consistency. Castilian innovations represent the future of international network development, your escort explains, while reviewing technical documentation that describes manufacturing processes for specialized equipment and chemical preparations. Peter's methods have achieved efficiency improvements that reduce costs while increasing capacity and participant satisfaction through systematic quality control and standardized procedures. The Castilian court operates from a complex of interconnected facilities that combine traditional palace architecture with purpose-built industrial structures designed specifically for large-scale cultural exchange operations. The integration creates seamless workflow between administrative coordination, personnel training, equipment manufacturing, and service delivery that maximizes operational efficiency while maintaining security that prevents external observation of specialized activities. Peter the Cruel receives you in workshops that demonstrate the revolutionary integration of traditional craftsmanship with systematic manufacturing processes. Skilled artisans work alongside mechanical devices that increase production capacity while maintaining quality standards that ensure participant satisfaction. The workshops produce equipment designed according to specifications that balance functional effectiveness with aesthetic appeal that enhances rather than detracts from entertainment value. The king himself appears as a man whose reputation for cruelty conceals engineering genius that has revolutionized network operations through innovations that address practical limitations of traditional cultural exchange methods. His personal involvement in technical development demonstrates commitment to systematic improvement that exceeds mere entertainment preferences to encompass comprehensive operational optimization. English coordination methods and French cultural refinement provided foundations for developments that achieve unprecedented operational capabilities, Peter explains, while reviewing production statistics that document manufacturing output and quality control metrics. Castilian innovations eliminate inefficiencies that previously limited network expansion while maintaining service standards that exceed participant expectations through systematic engineering improvements. The production statistics reveal manufacturing capacity that produces specialized equipment for network operations throughout Europe, with output volumes that suggest systematic supply of hundreds of facilities requiring regular equipment replacement and upgrade. The manufacturing capabilities represent industrial achievement that rivals conventional weapon production or construction equipment manufacturing in scope and sophistication. Your education in Castilian innovations begins with tours of manufacturing facilities that demonstrate systematic production of specialized equipment designed according to engineering principles that optimize functionality while minimizing production costs. The manufacturing processes combine traditional metalworking and woodworking techniques with innovations that increase precision and reduce fabrication time through systematic process improvement. The equipment designs reflect comprehensive understanding of operational requirements developed through systematic analysis of participant feedback and performance data collected from network operations throughout Europe. Each design incorporates improvements that address specific limitations identified through experience while maintaining compatibility with existing facility infrastructure and operational procedures. Engineering excellence requires systematic data collection and analysis that identifies improvement opportunities while maintaining compatibility with established operational procedures, explains the Chief Engineering Coordinator, while reviewing design specifications that document equipment modifications and performance enhancements. Innovation without systematic analysis creates operational disruption that reduces rather than improves service quality and participant satisfaction. The systematic data collection reveals comprehensive evaluation processes that assess every aspect of network operations through metrics that quantify efficiency, participant satisfaction, and operational security. The data analysis provides insights that guide engineering improvements while identifying trends that influence strategic planning and resource allocation decisions. Your assignment to quality control operations provides education in systematic evaluation processes that ensure consistent service delivery across facilities operated according to Castilian standards. The quality control measures include regular inspections, performance testing, and participant feedback analysis that maintains service standards while identifying improvement opportunities through systematic monitoring and evaluation. The quality control systems operate according to standardized procedures that evaluate both equipment performance and personnel effectiveness through metrics that combine objective measurement with subjective assessment. The evaluation processes ensure that operational standards meet network requirements while maintaining flexibility that accommodates local variations and cultural preferences. Quality control represents essential infrastructure for network reliability and participant confidence, explains the quality assurance supervisor while reviewing inspection protocols that assess facility operations according to standardized criteria. Systematic evaluation prevents service degradation while identifying enhancement opportunities that improve operational effectiveness and participant satisfaction through continuous improvement processes. But the quality control operations also reveal systematic conditioning of evaluation personnel who must maintain professional objectivity while assessing activities that would horrify normal human beings. The conditioning involves psychological training that enables effective performance evaluation despite moral objections that might interfere with accurate assessment and systematic improvement. Your education in industrial processes includes training in chemical preparations that enhance participant experiences through substances designed according to scientific principles that optimize effectiveness while minimizing adverse reactions. The chemical development represents pharmaceutical innovation that addresses specific operational requirements through systematic research and development processes. The chemical preparation facilities operate according to safety protocols that protect production personnel while ensuring product consistency through standardized manufacturing procedures. The preparations include substances that modify human behavior, enhance physical capabilities, and reduce psychological resistance through compounds that have been developed specifically for cultural exchange applications. The training curricula address every aspect of advanced network operations through comprehensive education that develops both technical skills and psychological resilience necessary for effective performance in industrial-scale cultural exchange environments. The education includes language training, cultural sensitivity development, technical skills certification, and psychological conditioning that enables continued effectiveness despite traumatic experiences. Personnel development represents critical investment in network capabilities that determine operational success through human resources that must maintain effectiveness despite challenging working conditions, explains the training program director while reviewing curriculum materials that address comprehensive skill development requirements. Systematic education creates personnel capabilities that enable network expansion while maintaining service standards through professional development that exceeds conventional training programs. The training programs reveal systematic conditioning that eliminates participants' capacity for moral objection or resistance to network demands through psychological manipulation that creates complete dependence on network systems for survival and identity. The conditioning ensures continued cooperation regardless of personal preferences or ethical objections that might develop during service. Your assignment to production management provides oversight responsibilities for manufacturing operations that supply specialized equipment to network facilities throughout Europe. The production management requires coordination between multiple manufacturing facilities while maintaining quality standards and delivery schedules that ensure continuous operation of network activities without supply disruptions. The production coordination includes managing relationships with suppliers who provide raw materials, component manufacturers who produce specialized parts, and transportation networks that distribute finished equipment according to delivery schedules that accommodate operational requirements throughout Europe. The coordination complexity requires administrative capabilities that exceed conventional manufacturing management through specialized logistics and security requirements. Production management demands administrative excellence that coordinates complex supply chains while maintaining security that protects operational details from external observation, explains the production supervisor while reviewing manufacturing schedules that allocate resources according to demand patterns and strategic priorities. Systematic coordination ensures reliable equipment supply while maintaining operational security through comprehensive management of manufacturing and distribution processes. But the production management also reveals environmental destruction and resource exploitation that supports network operations through manufacturing processes that prioritize operational requirements over environmental protection or sustainable resource utilization. The production systems treat natural resources as expendable inputs for manufacturing that serve systematic human exploitation rather than beneficial social development. Your growing expertise in industrial operations earns assignment to strategic planning responsibilities that influence network development throughout Europe through decisions that affect operational expansion and technological innovation. The strategic planning requires comprehensive understanding of network capabilities and limitations combined with analysis of political and economic factors that influence expansion opportunities. The strategic planning includes evaluating potential expansion into new territories, assessing technological development priorities, and coordinating resource allocation decisions that affect network operations throughout Europe. The planning processes require analytical capabilities that exceed conventional administrative skills through systematic evaluation of complex operational and strategic considerations. Strategic development requires analytical excellence that evaluates multiple factors affecting network operations while identifying opportunities for expansion and improvement through systematic planning and resource allocation, explains the strategic planning coordinator while reviewing analysis that assesses expansion opportunities and technological development priorities. Comprehensive planning ensures network growth while maintaining operational effectiveness through systematic coordination of development activities. Your education in strategic planning reveals network scope that encompasses virtually every aspect of European political and economic development through operations that influence decision-making at the highest levels of government and society. The network operations have achieved institutional scale that affects political stability and economic development throughout medieval Europe through systematic coordination of activities that create dependencies and leverage that transcend conventional diplomatic relationships. But the strategic planning also reveals systematic corruption of European political and social institutions through network operations that prioritize exploitation over legitimate governance and social development. The corruption creates vulnerabilities that might be exploited through coordinated resistance that exposes network operations to public scrutiny and legal prosecution. Your growing understanding of network scope and strategic objectives provides knowledge that could potentially enable coordinated resistance against operations that represent systematic exploitation disguised as cultural innovation. But your knowledge also makes you an essential strategic asset whose continued cooperation ensures network security, while your potential betrayal represents existential threat to operations that have achieved institutional scale throughout Europe. The industrial innovations demonstrate how systematic organization and technological development can transform individual exploitation into institutional systems that operate at unprecedented scale while maintaining operational security through systematic conditioning and technological control. The innovations represent both remarkable achievement in organizational development and systematic violation of human dignity through industrial-scale exploitation. But your growing understanding reveals how these network operations will soon create political complications when systematic exploitation conflicts with conventional diplomatic relationships and religious authorities. You'll witness how personal preferences can threaten entire network systems and discover the resistance movements that develop within network systems when participants begin coordinating opposition against institutional exploitation. You'll also uncover the internal security systems that protect network operations from exposure while managing resistance through systematic suppression and the potential vulnerabilities that might enable coordinated action against operations that represent industrial-scale human exploitation disguised as cultural advancement. Your mastery of industrial-scale operations earns recall to England for crisis management assignment that threatens the entire European network structure. After 18 months coordinating manufacturing and strategic planning in Castile, Benedict's urgent summons arrives with courier dispatches that describe political complications requiring immediate intervention by personnel with comprehensive network experience and crisis resolution expertise. Edward II's personal preferences have created diplomatic incidents that threaten network security throughout Northern Europe, Benedict explains, while reviewing crisis reports that document escalating conflicts between network operations and conventional political relationships. His inability to maintain discretion has attracted attention from authorities who previously ignored our activities through careful diplomatic management. The crisis reports reveal systematic breakdown of operational security that began when Edward II's preference for male companions interfered with established network protocols designed to maintain political cover while maximizing operational effectiveness. His personal relationships have created conflicts that threaten exposure of network activities to hostile investigation by authorities with legal jurisdiction and military capability sufficient to disrupt operations throughout Europe. Your assignment to crisis resolution requires returning to operational environments where personal relationships between political leaders threaten systematic coordination that depends on maintaining separation between public political roles and private entertainment preferences. The resolution demands diplomatic skills that balance network security requirements against individual political needs that cannot be eliminated through conventional administrative management. The English court has become a battleground between network operational requirements and personal political dynamics that create vulnerabilities exploitable by hostile authorities seeking to undermine network security through exposure of activities that violate conventional legal and moral standards. The battleground creates operational complications that require crisis management expertise developed through comprehensive network experience. Edward II receives you in private chambers that demonstrate the delicate balance between conventional royal authority and network operational requirements. The chambers maintain appearance of traditional royal residence while incorporating features necessary for network activities that require specialized accommodation. The integration creates environments that serve dual purposes while maintaining plausible deniability regarding unconventional activities. The king himself appears as a man whose personal preferences have created political vulnerabilities that threaten not just individual reputation, but systematic network operations throughout Northern Europe. His relationships with male favourites have generated opposition that exceeds normal political rivalry to encompass moral objections that could justify external intervention in network activities. Personal relationships should enhance rather than complicate network operations through bonds that strengthen political cooperation, Edward explains, while reviewing correspondence that documents growing opposition to his court policies and personal behaviour. But hostile authorities exploit private preferences to justify interference that threatens operational security and network coordination throughout established alliance systems. The correspondence reveals systematic campaign by political opponents who have identified network vulnerabilities through careful observation of court activities and personal relationships that deviate from conventional royal behaviour patterns. The opposition combines political rivalry with moral objections that create justification for intervention that could expose network operations to legal prosecution and military suppression. Your education in crisis management begins with analysis of security breaches that resulted from inadequate separation between personal preferences and operational requirements. The breaches include unauthorized disclosure of network activities, infiltration by hostile agents, and coordination failures that created opportunities for external observation of activities requiring absolute secrecy for continued operation. The security analysis reveals systematic intelligence gathering by opposition forces who have developed comprehensive understanding of network operations through careful surveillance and infiltration of operational personnel. The intelligence gathering represents existential threat to network security that requires immediate countermeasures and long-term strategic adjustments to prevent complete exposure and destruction. Security breaches require systematic response that addresses immediate threats while implementing preventive measures that protect long-term operational capability, explains the security coordinator, while reviewing intelligence reports that document hostile surveillance activities and infiltration attempts. Crisis resolution demands comprehensive understanding of threat capabilities combined with decisive action that eliminates vulnerabilities while maintaining operational effectiveness. Your assignment to intelligence countermeasures includes identifying and neutralizing hostile agents who have penetrated network operations through recruitment of operational personnel and infiltration of coordination systems. The counterintelligence work requires investigative skills that identify security threats while maintaining operational cover that prevents detection of countermeasure activities. The counterintelligence operations reveal extensive penetration by agents working for Queen Isabella, who has developed systematic opposition to network activities through personal motivations that combine political ambition with moral objections to activities that violate conventional standards of royal behaviour and Christian morality. Her opposition represents coordinated threat that exceeds individual political rivalry through organized resistance with military and legal capabilities. Isabella's intelligence network includes agents positioned throughout English network operations who provide detailed information about operational procedures, personnel assignments, and coordination activities that enable comprehensive understanding of network vulnerabilities and strategic weaknesses. The intelligence operation represents sophisticated threat that requires equally sophisticated countermeasures to prevent complete operational exposure. Isabella's opposition combines personal motivations with political capabilities that create unprecedented threat to network security, explains the counterintelligence supervisor while reviewing agent reports that document hostile intelligence activities and strategic planning. Her access to royal resources and military authority enables opposition capabilities that exceed previous security challenges through systematic organization and comprehensive strategic planning. Your education in threat assessment includes analysis of Isabella's strategic objectives that encompass not just political opposition to Edward II's rule, but systematic destruction of network operations throughout Europe through coordinated action that exposes activities to legal prosecution and public condemnation. Her objectives represent existential threat that requires comprehensive defensive measures and strategic adjustments. The threat analysis reveals Isabella's coordination with external authorities who possess legal jurisdiction and military capability sufficient to disrupt network operations through investigation, prosecution, and military action that could destroy operational infrastructure throughout Europe. The coordination creates multiple threat vectors that require simultaneous defensive measures across different operational domains. Your assignment to defensive coordination includes developing countermeasures that protect network operations while maintaining operational effectiveness despite hostile surveillance and infiltration attempts. The defensive measures combine operational security improvements with strategic deception that conceals network activities while providing alternative explanations for observed behaviors and institutional arrangements. The defensive coordination requires managing relationships between network operations and conventional authorities who must be convinced that observed activities represent legitimate diplomatic and cultural activities rather than systematic exploitation requiring legal intervention. The management demands diplomatic skills that maintain operational cover while preventing hostile investigation through careful presentation of alternative explanations. Defensive coordination demands diplomatic excellence that maintains operational security while managing relationships with authorities who possess capability to disrupt network activities through legal and military intervention, explains the defensive coordinator while reviewing security protocols that protect operational activities from external observation and investigation. Successful defense requires comprehensive understanding of threat capabilities combined with systematic countermeasures that eliminate vulnerabilities without disrupting operational effectiveness. But the defensive measures also reveal systematic corruption of legal and religious authorities who have been compromised through participation in network activities that create leverage, preventing hostile action against network operations. The corruption creates defensive capabilities while generating additional vulnerabilities that might be exploited by opposition forces seeking to expose systematic institutional compromise. Your education in internal security includes participation in programs designed to identify and manage resistance within network personnel who might be recruited by hostile intelligence operations, or develop moral objections that threaten operational security through unauthorized disclosure or active cooperation with opposition forces. The internal security measures combine surveillance with psychological conditioning that maintains personnel loyalty despite external pressure and moral conflicts. The internal security operations reveal growing resistance among network personnel who have developed coordinated opposition to continued participation in activities that violate personal moral convictions despite psychological conditioning and systematic management designed to prevent such resistance. The resistance represents internal threat that requires careful management to prevent operational disruption while maintaining personnel effectiveness. The resistance networks include personnel from throughout European network operations who have established communication systems that enable coordination of opposition activities despite comprehensive surveillance and security measures designed to prevent unauthorized coordination between operational personnel. The resistance demonstrates systematic organization that poses significant threat to operational security and network stability. Internal resistance requires sophisticated management that addresses personnel concerns while maintaining operational effectiveness and security, explains the internal security coordinator while reviewing surveillance reports that document resistance activities and communication networks. Resistance management demands psychological expertise that addresses underlying motivations while preventing coordination that could threaten operational security through systematic disclosure or active sabotage. Your assignment to resistance management includes developing programs that address personnel concerns through alternative incentives and psychological support while maintaining operational requirements that cannot be compromised without threatening network effectiveness. The management requires understanding both operational necessities and human psychology that enables sustainable solutions to resistance challenges. The resistance management reveals systematic moral deterioration among long-term network personnel who have developed psychological problems that interfere with operational effectiveness despite extensive conditioning and support programs. The deterioration creates personnel replacement requirements that strain training programs while generating security risks through unstable personnel with comprehensive knowledge of operational procedures. Your education in crisis resolution includes participation in strategic planning that addresses systematic threats to network operations through comprehensive defensive measures combined with strategic adjustments that maintain operational effectiveness while adapting to changing political and security environments. The strategic planning requires analytical capabilities that evaluate multiple threat vectors while developing coordinated responses. The strategic planning reveals network vulnerabilities that result from expansion beyond sustainable operational limits through growth that exceeded security capabilities and personnel management systems. The vulnerabilities create systematic threats that require strategic contraction and reorganization to maintain viable operations despite hostile pressure and internal resistance. Your growing understanding of network vulnerabilities provides knowledge that could enable coordinated action to expose and destroy operations that represent systematic exploitation disguised as cultural innovation. But your knowledge also makes you a critical security asset whose cooperation ensures operational survival, while your betrayal could enable complete network destruction through coordinated exposure and legal prosecution. The crisis management demonstrates how systematic exploitation creates inherent instabilities that threaten operational survival through internal resistance and external opposition that cannot be completely eliminated through security measures and defensive coordination. The instabilities represent fundamental contradictions between operational requirements and human nature that create ongoing vulnerabilities requiring constant management. Your assignment to strategic assessment includes evaluating long-term network sustainability given political opposition, internal resistance, and moral objections that threaten operational stability through systematic challenges that exceed individual crisis management capabilities. The assessment requires comprehensive analysis of factors affecting network viability under hostile conditions and organized opposition. The sustainability analysis reveals systematic problems that threaten network survival through fundamental conflicts between operational requirements and political stability that cannot be resolved through administrative management or security measures. The problems suggest that network operations have achieved scale that exceeds sustainable limits through expansion that created unmanageable vulnerabilities and systematic opposition. Your education in strategic options includes evaluation of alternative approaches that might maintain essential network capabilities while reducing vulnerabilities that threaten complete operational destruction through exposure and prosecution. The alternatives require sacrifice of operational scope while preserving core capabilities through strategic contraction and reorganization that maintains viability under hostile conditions. But the strategic evaluation also reveals the impossibility of sustainable reform for operations that depend on systematic exploitation incompatible with conventional moral standards and legal frameworks. The evaluation suggests that network operations represent inherently unstable systems that must either expand to maintain viability or face inevitable collapse through internal contradictions and external opposition. Your growing expertise in crisis management earns assignment to coordinating potential network evacuation and asset preservation that might enable operational reconstruction in alternative environments less vulnerable to hostile intervention and organized resistance. The evacuation planning requires comprehensive understanding of network capabilities and resource requirements for maintaining essential operations despite political opposition and legal pressure. The evacuation coordination reveals the systematic dependence of network operations on political protection and institutional corruption that cannot be replicated in alternative environments without extensive development of new operational infrastructure and political relationships. The dependence suggests that network operations face fundamental sustainability challenges that cannot be resolved through relocation or strategic adjustment. Your final assignment involves preparing comprehensive documentation of network operations that might serve either as operational manual for network reconstruction or as evidence for systematic exposure, depending on strategic decisions regarding network survival versus controlled destruction. The documentation requires detailed knowledge of all operational aspects while maintaining security that prevents unauthorized access to comprehensive operational intelligence. The ultimate resolution of this network crisis approaches through coordinated action that will determine whether operations continue through successful crisis management or face destruction through systematic exposure and organized resistance. You'll soon face the moral choices that determine individual participation in continued exploitation versus coordination with resistance movements seeking to destroy operations that represent systematic violation of human dignity and conventional morality. You'll also discover the personal cost of comprehensive network knowledge and the ultimate consequences of decisions that determine both individual survival and the fate of operations that affect political stability and human welfare throughout medieval Europe. The documentation assignment becomes your pathway to salvation when you discover evidence that your own younger brother has been recruited for network service. The discovery occurs during routine file review when you recognize his name on transport, manifests listing new personnel acquisitions from your home village. Seeing his familiar signature on recruitment documents creates moral crisis that overwhelms years of psychological conditioning designed to prevent exactly this kind of personal revelation. Thomas delivers the transport schedule personally, his expression indicating awareness of the family connection that makes this assignment particularly devastating. Your brother will arrive within the week for preliminary evaluation and training assignment that will determine his role in network operations. The evaluation process that you now understand in horrifying detail, having participated in designing efficiency improvements that maximize operational effectiveness while minimizing personnel wastage. Network expansion requires continuous recruitment to replace personnel who become unavailable for continued service, Thomas explains, while reviewing the manifest that includes detailed information about your brother's physical characteristics and assessed psychological vulnerabilities. Your expertise in training program development makes you ideally suited to oversee his integration into network operations. Overseeing your brother's integration into systematic exploitation represents the ultimate test of psychological conditioning that has enabled your survival through 2 years of network service. The assignment forces recognition that continued cooperation means participating in the destruction of the last person whose well-being matters more than your own survival and advancement within network hierarchy. Your crisis management expertise reveals network vulnerabilities that could be exploited through coordinated resistance. Your position provides access to communication systems and operational intelligence that could enable resistance organization despite security measures. The decision to resist emerges through recognition that network operations represent institutional evil that must be completely destroyed. The decision requires abandoning the only stability you've known since leaving your village 2 years ago. Your first resistance action involves contacting other personnel who maintain moral objections despite psychological conditioning. This requires extreme caution to avoid internal security systems that monitor all personnel for signs of potential resistance. Underground networks already exist within operations, composed of personnel planning, coordinated action, while recruiting additional participants with operational access. Resistance requires careful coordination to overcome security measures that have been designed specifically to prevent organized opposition, explains Maria, a former French network coordinator who has been organizing resistance while maintaining operational cover that conceals her activities from internal security surveillance. Success depends on simultaneous action across multiple operational centers to prevent security responses that could eliminate resistance participants through systematic suppression. The resistance networks include personnel from throughout European network operations who have maintained communication despite comprehensive security measures through careful use of legitimate operational channels that conceal resistance coordination within normal administrative activities. The networks demonstrate sophisticated organization that has been developing for months while waiting for opportunities to recruit participants with access to critical operational systems. Your recruitment into resistance networks provides access to documentation efforts that have been systematically gathering evidence of network operations for eventual exposure to authorities with jurisdiction and capability to prosecute network leadership while protecting evidence and witnesses from retaliation. The documentation includes comprehensive records of operational procedures, financial arrangements, and personnel management systems that demonstrate systematic exploitation. The evidence collection efforts reveal the scope of systematic documentation required to prove network operations to authorities who might initially refuse to believe that such organized exploitation could exist within established political and religious institutions. The documentation must provide irrefutable evidence while protecting sources and witnesses from retaliation that could eliminate testimony and evidence through systematic suppression. Evidence collection requires comprehensive documentation that overcomes official reluctance to investigate activities that implicate respected political and religious authorities, explains Brother Francis, a monastery official who has been documenting network operations while maintaining religious cover that provides access to church authorities with jurisdiction over moral prosecution. Successful exposure requires evidence that exceeds normal legal standards while providing witness protection that ensures testimony survival. Your evidence collection includes comprehensive documentation of network operations throughout Europe, financial records, personnel files, operational procedures, and communication logs that demonstrate systematic international coordination. The compilation requires extreme security to prevent detection. The evidence compilation reveals network scope that encompasses virtually every major political centre throughout medieval Europe, with operational involvement by authorities who should theoretically be responsible for preventing rather than facilitating systematic exploitation. The evidence demonstrates institutional corruption that extends throughout European political and religious hierarchy. Your growing understanding of evidence requirements leads to coordination with resistance participants who have access to different aspects of network operations, enabling compilation of comprehensive documentation that demonstrates systematic organisation while providing witness testimony that supports documentary evidence through personal accounts of operational participation and resistance. The coordination efforts reveal resistance network scope that includes participants from throughout European network operations who have been systematically gathering evidence while planning coordinated exposure action that will simultaneously present evidence to authorities in multiple kingdoms to prevent suppression through localized security responses. Your brother's arrival creates deadline pressure that forces immediate action. Resistance networks must prevent his recruitment through exposure action, sacrificing comprehensive evidence preparation to save additional lives from systematic exploitation. Your decision to prioritize immediate action over comprehensive evidence preparation results in coordination with resistance networks throughout Europe for simultaneous exposure action that presents available evidence to religious and political authorities while evacuating key witnesses to protective custody that prevents retaliation against resistance participants. The evacuation planning requires utilizing network transportation systems for resistance purposes while maintaining operational cover that conceals resistance activities until simultaneous exposure prevents security countermeasures. The planning demonstrates how network operational capabilities can be exploited for resistance purposes through careful coordination and systematic deception. Your final network assignment involves utilizing crisis management access to disable communication systems that coordinate network security responses while simultaneously facilitating evidence transfer to authorities and witness evacuation to protective locations. The assignment requires technical expertise developed through years of network service while accepting personal danger that results from betraying systems that provided career advancement and survival. The communication system sabotage creates temporary disruption that prevents coordinated security response, while resistance networks implement simultaneous exposure action across multiple kingdoms. The sabotage demonstrates how comprehensive network knowledge can be utilized for systematic destruction rather than operational enhancement through coordinated resistance action. The exposure action presents evidence to church authorities, royal courts, and legal officials throughout Europe simultaneously, preventing suppression while ensuring official investigation and prosecution of network leadership. Results include arrest of network leaders, seizure failure of operational facilities and witness protection. However, some leaders receive protection through political influence, while some facilities gain official sanction through administrative redefinition. Your personal consequences include permanent exile from established political systems, requiring complete abandonment of conventional society while providing protection from network retaliation through resistance network support. The broader consequences include systematic diplomatic reform throughout Europe, establishing oversight mechanisms to prevent similar exploitation while creating accountability systems that monitor official behavior for systematic abuse. Your story concludes with recognition that survival under medieval Europe's most creative rulers required developing skills no normal person should need, while resistance success demonstrated human capacity for moral courage despite institutional pressure designed to eliminate ethical awareness. The medieval world you survived no longer exists, destroyed through resistance that exposed systematic exploitation while creating accountability systems preventing similar institutional arrangements. The historical lesson remains relevant for recognizing and preventing systematic abuse of political power through secrecy and institutional protection.